evening, Galion. This is Mayor Tom O'Leary coming from the mayor's office, again with one of our Facebook Lives. I want to start tonight and focus, at least initially for a few minutes, on one particular topic that has been discussed quite a bit throughout the community, but I think the discussion time is drawing to a conclusion, and the idea of whether or not to move ahead with what I would call a Freeze Athletic Center here in Galion. I think the time to evaluate that and move ahead is here. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about it. I think all of the people watching, listening tonight have some general idea of what I'm talking about. And one of the difficult things from where the community stands now, until we can develop a consensus that's sufficient to get this project built, is that I think everyone has a little bit different baseline of information about what's under discussion and what's being planned for. First thing I want to mention is that this project goes back into 2013 and 14. One of the first studies that determined that there was a need in the community, an unmet need for gym space for youth of all ages, really from the elementary school age all the way through to high school age. And certainly at that time, there was no response to the growing interest in soccer and indoor turf sports. So since that time, a few things have happened. Galion has had several years of interscholastic soccer. I think the need that some people thought was wait and see is being proofed out. There's just increasing number of young people interested in all ages in soccer, and the number of people in our community that are traveling around the state to find places to continue to develop their skills and all that goes along with that kind of youth activity is continuing to grow. But anyways, there was a study done back in 14 and 15 which said roughly that there was an unmet need in the community for largely what's being proposed on the court sports, volleyball and basketball. It was really the consensus of that study and the consultant that really looked at the data, if you will, that there's a need for 3 basketball courts and up to 6 volleyball courts. A need in the sense that those could be supported by existing youth programs in the community. So the whole idea of this started with meeting an unmet need in Crawford County or in general Galion area. Really only after that was proved out did discussions about what else could a facility be used for, commercially, if you will, if such a facility was built. So it's at that point that the idea of an economic development engine and not just a youth recreation quality of life project were married together, or the idea was welded together, if you will. So now what's being proposed is a 55,000 square foot facility that is really has 2 sides to it, if you will. One that would be a turf side that would allow for regulation youth soccer and a variety of other turf use applications. Also, that would be designed so it could be a multi-purpose facility for things like tractor park conventions. For all my Second Amendment fans, you could potentially have gun shows out there. For all the anti-Second Amendment fans, you could have anti-gun show demonstrations. But those kind of uses for that side of the facility, I think, have a lot of upside potential. I want to just go on for another minute. About a month ago, at Richland County's fairgrounds, they had a big wrestling match. I think they had a pretty decent crowd, and so that kind of MMA, that kind of amateur, if you will, boxing, those kinds of activities, while they may not be for everyone who's watching tonight, there's a certain group of our neighbors for whom that's some pretty neat entertainment. And so the field house side, if you'll accept that, has a lot of potential for not only youth soccer, adult soccer, but also quite a number of what I'd call special event opportunities. The other half of the building is basically 3 basketball courts and 6 volleyball courts. And the potential through the week for youth and other groups to participate. There's a great number of opportunities for that sort of potential. And then certainly on the weekends, there's a great opportunity to tap into a lot of the AAU type travel basketball that is both a girls and boys activity. And then Mid-Ohio Mojo Junior Olympics is really the area volleyball group. There's also a group up in Tiffin, Black Swamp, I believe is their name, that has quite a number of young women in volleyball at that youth level. So that's really a breakdown of what would be in the 55,000 square foot. In between those two sides, there would be a mezzanine area that would be for stands for people to watch, for teams that are between games to sit and relax. And so what I would encourage people who haven't seen any of the artist renderings that were developed to come up to City Hall or give us an email request, and we'll try to send you some of the images that the architect came up with, rather. So the project is, I think, designed to meet both a local need and to be able to have an attraction for economic development. Just wind up this part of tonight's broadcast by saying that the most recent study was done on the business feasibility of this facility, and while people can contest whether or not the consultants hit the nail right on the head or hit the bullseye with each one of their assumptions, and that's debatable, I think. There's little discussion or there's little question about the number of people that would be attracted to Galion if this type of facility is built. And my guess is on the low end that after a year or two of operation, there'll be as many as 25,000 on the low end people coming to the Galion area to participate in the weekend activities. And that 25,000 doesn't include Galion area, Crawford County area young people using the facility throughout the week, and whenever a local facility could be used or rented by any organization that you can think of that you might be a member of. So I think what I'm tried to do is lay out what give you a baseline idea of what is the facility that's being proposed, what would be in it, and some of the opportunities that would be there. I think the most difficult thing to convey, or part of this to convey, is how this project would be funded. So we're really moving into that part of the discussion and decision making with City Council and really anyone else who's interested in how this kind of major project could be funded responsibly, and in my view add to the real growth and potential upside future of Galion. So I guess I'll stop there. I'm not sure if I've talked this to death or raised questions in people's minds about the facility, but I'll stop there, see if we have any questions on that, and then certainly it's as it always is, it's kind of open season on Q&A, so we'll just go to that now if that sounds good, Matt.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Related to the sports complex, Dawn did ask, will there be a Facebook page that has info and updates about the rec?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. The Dawn has got the lingo, one of the terms that's been associated with what do you call this thing, and when it's conceptual, you got to call it something. So the notion of the rec early on, I'm much more inclined, now that we've been working on this for a couple of years, to attach a freeze handle to that, because I think if this project is going to be built, there will be a significant contribution in one way or another of freeze funds to accomplish this. So that is a really good idea, and Matt, who read the question, will be working on a Facebook page tomorrow. I think that's a good idea because there are a lot of materials that have been put in place. I'm not the most techie person, but there are several large files that have the consultants that were used in phase 1, and then there was preliminary engineering that kind of phase 2 in our mind, and then the last phase of consultancy was really a business plan, and really based on the fact if you build this certain facility, at what point will it break even, and at what point will it be self-sufficient and self-sustaining. So a website that has that, or a Facebook site, or both, is a really good idea to get the word out and develop better understanding among folks in town, and then also begin to build a clearer vision of what we're talking about instead of just words. So it's a great, Don, thanks for a good idea. We'll get moving on that.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Also, a little bit of discussion in relation to the complex as far as how it would be funded. I know you hit on that just a little bit, but could you maybe just respond to it a little bit more in terms of it's not a a tax levy issue?
No, I don't think never from the idea of we this community would be better if we had this type of facility. Has there been serious consideration of local tax levies? In fact, this project wouldn't be seriously under consideration but for the freeze endowment that now is in and around $10 million. This kind of project in a community this size is feasible and doable from a financing point of view because of that endowment. And so however these costs are divided up, you can certainly count on a major part of the project being funded by the Freeze Foundation. The rest of that answer gets into things like purchasing bonds versus issuing bonds to the public, and some things that we're quite honestly looking at. There seem to be a range of options that City Council and the Freeze Foundation Board of Trustees will be looking at. My guess is that we'll do three things. One, that will make sure that whatever money is dedicated to this major project, that there's still significant amount of funds, let's say $100,000 each year from freeze proceeds, our regular allocation or set aside, that will go to maintaining the existing parks and adding things to the park system. So we won't have every dollar that comes from freeze going to one project. I think that's fundamental. It won't happen project won't happen if we don't satisfy that need. The second constituency that needs to be taken into account, and I would use the word hold harmless, would be the schools, which are a 1/8 beneficiary of the endowment. And that 1/8 has traditionally gone to scholarships. And I think what the proposal will likely be is that whatever that amount has been the last several years, and I can tell you it's in the neighborhood of $60,000 to $70,000 that's gone to fund scholarships through the Freeze Foundation, that will make sure that that's guaranteed. That there'll be, if you will, of the money that comes from the proceeds of the endowment, that off the top will come $100,000 at least to protect the further investments and maintaining the things we've already put in, and then $70,000 or thereabouts that will go to maintaining the integrity of the scholarship program. After that, it'll be interesting to see. The foundation could issue the bonds could purchase the bonds that were issued by the city or a port authority, perhaps. And in that way, the fund itself wouldn't be reduced. And so that's intriguing. I think some of the previous ways of building this would have the city, which is allowed in the will, liquidate part of the endowment. I know from conversations over the last several years that there are people in the community who aren't in favor of doing that. So what we're going to try and do is balance that so that at the end of the time this project is built and paid for, that the Freeze Foundation will be back to a level of around $10 million where it is today. So anyways, it's difficult, especially for me, to be honest with you, to give a relatively simple answer to what is a kind of a complicated equation. And I think the final thing I'd say is we're working with a couple different options, and my plan is to bring those options back to City Council at the committee level, get their buy-in, determine the number of votes in favor of this project on City Council, and move ahead over the next several months, not the next several years. So.
Okay, we're going to switch topics now, take some other questions. First one tonight came from Cindy. She asked, is there any more discussion about the traffic signal at Brant Road and 598?
Yeah, about all I can add from last week when we talked about it a little bit is it's still under design. It looks like probably the slowest slowest component of getting that light up is the ordering and receipt of the pole and cross arm. So the engineer on the project told us that those are 30-some weeks out from the time they're ordered. So that would be something we're going to be working on. My thoughts are that while I had forecast something around Labor Day, it's probably more like Halloween to Thanksgiving, to be honest with you. But project's moving ahead, and the funding for that project is understood where that money's going to come from, and so if it's not the engineering that doesn't fall in place on time, oftentimes it's the funding. So I think I feel pretty good about how that's moving ahead, and I'll be disappointed and surprised if it doesn't happen yet this calendar year.
Okay, thank you. Next question tonight comes from Sheila. She asks, is there any update on a grocery store?
Well, I talked with some people today, to be honest with you, and that probably doesn't make today any different than most other days here. The interest continues. This was a new realty company looking, trying to size up the situation. I'm kind of falling into the category of less hopeful. I'm not sure what we need to do to break break through this stalemate that we're in between potential tenants and the owner of the facility. All I can say for the time being is do what many of us have done, and that's become good drug mart and save a lot customers.
Okay. Next question, not sure exactly what it's referring to, but Cindy asked, what are all the little flags on Portland Way North?
Yeah, there's some surveying that went on. The little flags are location of utility lines. The wooden stakes with the pink flag sticking off, those are a result of the survey being done for the widening project on 598. So those people who know a little bit about surveying, you might say, well, there's not very many stakes out there. And while that's true, I can assure you that there's a lot of data that was taken from the survey crew. And so they've surveyed the whole right-of-way, although there aren't as many of our stakes as there are the utility stakes. So anyways, that's I don't know if we have anything else, much else. We're very aware that when it comes to ice and snow, you're only as good as your last event. And so we expect to have one of the guys who does a great job for us stopped I saw him actually in the street behind my house, and he said he was getting tired of it. And I said, well, we probably have about 4 more events. So if anybody is keeping track, my guess is tonight here late in February that we'll probably have 3 or 4 more snow events. And we're equipped with salt, trucks, and a crew that's done a great job of showing up and getting the job done. So, we'll be getting through the end of the summer, or excuse me, end of the winter, and beginning to plan our spring activities. And so we'll keep you informed on that in terms of resurfacing. And but I got to tell you, we're going to keep the emphasis on this opportunity to build something that can have a major impact on the future of Galion and the livability of the community, and really, I believe, be something that will help attract jobs, and I think will be something that will cause people to want to live here and raise their families here. That's what we're going to work hard to make a reality. So thanks a lot tonight for watching, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.